Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino. How are you?
I'm doing well. I guess we're gonna change some things, but first we got to say thank you to everybody.
Everybody, thank you.
Yes, thanks for clicking through the Amazon banner.
Yes,
we're getting some good love there,
awesome.
Which is nice.
Awesome.
And of course, the donate button on the old front of the web page there.
That's right.
It's helping keep the lights on, and you get to do some Christmas shopping.
These episodes are coming around Christmas time, so surely there's something on Amazon.
I tell you what, it's an awesome thing. Somebody, I wish I could find out this piece. They bought a Kindle Fire.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that wasn't a small purchase. That was a little bit of dollars, and that really kicked off to us, so thank you very much. Yeah. I don't know who it was.
I don't either, but
yeah. And I also wanted to tell you, I don't know who did this, but somebody submitted the Darth Vader voice.
Really?
Yeah, and I've been using it on some of the shows, and I've been meaning to give a thank you to that, because I don't know who did it, and it's really produced well.
Nice.
So I was like, oh, I'm going to use it. So I use it every, fifth or sixth show. I put it in there in our transition from the time that we're talking to somebody or talking to each other, and then we go to the phones or to Skype.
Or to the guest or Skype. Or, yeah, right.
And speaking of which, we may get a call, or we're going to do the call today.
Right.
It's a little bit of a different thing for the beginning here, because we're running a little late.
So right, and we don't want to hold up our guest.
We don't want to hold up our guest. And it's, we may hear boop boop, and
we try to be as courteous as possible.
Yeah, I mean, we could try them right now if you'd like. Would you like that?
We could. Do
you have anything? You played last night.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, we did.
Gig.
And my very good friend Rob Fahey won the Maryland Icon Award,
which is pretty cool.
He's he was the most deserving on the list, in my opinion. My other very good friend, John Palumbo and Company, won Best Rock Band for Crack the Sky.
Look at that.
And big congrats to both of those guys. They're well-deserved awards.
Dave DeMarco was there to receive that.
Yes, Dave was there. Glenn Workman was also there, although Glenn was actually trying to wrangle, herding cats, trying to wrangle band members to get him on and off the stage. He was doing stage production kind of thing, so he was helping out with the event.
Well, we ought to have Dave on sometime.
Yeah, we should.
Dave is an insane bass player locally here, and he does a lot of work.
Oh,
he does a lot of studio stuff. He does a lot of stuff with Johnny Chill and of course Crack the Sky and God knows what else. He's got his own band.
Right, and he's
one of those guys.
He's one of those guys with many strings on his bass.
Yeah,
and not that they're all spread apart evenly. They're it's like a 12-string guitar is.
Yeah, but 3 strings per string.
3 strings per string. Yes,
yeah,
and
because it's just not enough.
He's orchestral in and among himself.
Yes.
And it's really cool. And he was there last night.
And pretty much a genius.
Yeah. Very musically talented and schooled.
Yeah,
because he.
I think
he did Berkeley.
And other, Berkeley. I mean, just like when you talk to him, he reads these books about historical facts and stuff. And he was educating me one day, and I was like, how do you know this?
Yeah, he's a wealth of knowledge, and then not all of it's musical. He's a very smart guy.
Yes.
And, really good friend.
Uh-oh. It looks like we got, there he is.
Well, okay. Awesome.
So here we go.
Well, let's just bring him on in, shall we?
Yes. Me?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just to give you a little bit of background, Bruce, you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, cool. Okay, I just wanted to make sure our levels were okay. So there was a gig over at the Timonium Fairgrounds in Maryland.
In Maryland,
right?
In Timonium, Maryland.
And Jeff's band, Johnny Chill, John Palumbo's gig, they got to open up for Grand Funk Railroad. And Grand Funk. I'm sorry, I always say Grand.
It's both.
It is both.
Okay.
It's both.
Okay.
It's Grand Funk Railroad.
And
or so the drumhead will lead you to believe.
And I'm up there helping Jeff. I'm teching for him, and next thing I know, here's Bruce Kulick standing right beside me. And I said, "Hey!" And I just handed him a card, and it was ridiculously loud, so we were kind of like screaming. But he went, "Absolutely, man! Just contact me. Here's my card." And here we are.
Here we are. So
Yes.
without further ado,
Absolutely.
And you all know this name, Mr. Bruce Kulick. Bruce, how are you, man? Great to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks. It is funny. The one thing I'll never forget about that gig, besides the fact that I have some family out in Baltimore area, but how they kept the crowd a certain distance away because they're so paranoid of if the weather was bad. And yes, the weather can be bad by Maryland, but the stage could fall. So if the stage fell, I guess the only people that would be hurt would be the band. You know, there's nobody in the crowd. Everybody is at least a stage length away.
Right.
Talking about arm's length, now we have a new term, stage length.
Stage length. I guess we were the Expendables, you know?
Yes.
I know.
Oh, my God.
But that was kind of weird. You know?
It was, Bruce, if you knew the backstory behind that, that's a whole nother podcast, my friend, and one that I really don't care to dredge
I
up.
probably shouldn't hear about it. You're right.
Yeah, it was crazy. Got a little heated around here for a while, but thankfully weather was great. You know, the crowd was great.
They were great.
You guys were great.
Oh my God!
Well, thank you. Yeah, we had a good time. We did. And look, and it can be called Grand Funk or Grand Funk Railroad. It doesn't matter, or GFR as I like to refer to it.
There you go.
But you know what we do? You know, these gigs all over the place. Some of them are, the casinos that a lot of the classic rock bands play. Some of them are city festivals. Some of them are fairs, of course. And the great thing about it is that, let's face it, they're such a general crowd, and I love the fact that I can make someone of the age that would love Grand Funk, or even, a little younger that would dig Kiss or anything classic rock from, as well, the 80s and 90s and all. And then you see the kids too, and the teenagers. There's something about rock and roll and playing guitar and I'd say a quarter of the set, maybe half of the set are recognizable songs from Grand Funk. So
absolutely,
it goes over really well. And what an honor to play with such an amazing rhythm section. And the other two guys also in this version of Grand Funk are extremely talented, Max and Tim. So I have a great time at the gigs. It's a lot of fun.
You guys sounded great, man. It was just an awesome gig. And just hearing that stuff again, it was really cool. We went out and hung out in the crowd for a while to watch the set, and cool. Sounded really good. You guys played your ass off, man. So
thank you. Appreciate it.
It was fun. It was a fun day.
Now you guys are amps and axes. So did you notice my amps and axes?
Oh yeah,
yeah, we did, and we will get to that. But I like to go a little bit back into the Wayback Machine, and try to figure out or ask you, and you can tell us what led Bruce to the guitar. Was it getting the girls, or what put the guitar in Bruce's hand, and when did that start?
Wow, now we're going back to the embryo, I guess. No.
Oh yeah.
No, I know.
We're all about the DNA, man.
Yeah, exactly. I have to say that it's kind of funny. I remember Gene once quoted saying, like, if any musician tells you, a male musician tells you that they didn't get into playing guitar because of women, they're lying, Now, I'll admit that as soon as I picked up the guitar, suddenly girls were attracted to me. But I was attracted to the guitar first, and I clearly saw it on stage with the Beatles in that fateful February of 1964, where I was just about 10 years old, a little over 10, and I was freaking out. Like millions around the world did, or certainly in America that night.
For sure.
And my brother already was playing, he's a little older than me, and he was already playing acoustic guitar, actually, learning like some things by Dylan and Joan Baez and all that. And who knew this other thing was going to start, just explode, So I have to be honest that it seemed like I did have a knack for it. I think it's called an innate ability, when certain people are just natural singers, and getting my hands on the guitar felt right, and it wasn't a big struggle, and it just kept evolving, taking lessons at the corner record store in Brooklyn, and then, trying to, obviously my brother was a little more advanced in the beginning, and learning whatever I could grab from him, and then taking that to, playing with people in the neighborhood. And at first, Bob was such a good guitar player, my brother, that my first instrument was really an electric bass. I got my hands on an EB3 because I loved Jack Bruce and Eric Clapton kind of equally, Nice. And Cream was a big influence for me, along with The Who and all the British bands, Led Zeppelin, all of that. That was a great time for amazing music that was still such an important part of our culture, as I'm sure you agree.
Absolutely.
So playing bass got me a little stronger on the guitar, and I remember playing with some friends in the neighborhood that if I picked up the guitar, they go like, "Why are you playing bass? You should play lead guitar in the band." Kind of things. So I still always loved the fact that I started out. My first electric instrument was a bass, but and I still really enjoy playing bass, although it's not my go-to. I wouldn't want to be in a band playing bass. I would just get too exhausted probably from it. But it kind of, you know what I mean. It's a whole nother touch. But I do play it on my solo records, and even played it on some of the Kiss tracks. When because that band was much like the Beatles in the sense like whoever's best for the song, get on there.
Sure.
And sometimes Gene was too much of a Godzilla on the bass, so Paul would ask me to do it. Just like Eric Carr actually played bass on "I Still Love You," one of the ballads. I don't know why I wasn't around then during Creatures, but anyway, getting on to my evolution of guitar playing, I just I've been very fortunate. It just never it never stopped. I went from one thing into another, and I'm one of those really blessed working musicians. So I'm very, very happy about my career, and I never knew really what was coming next. But I always remind people, especially the younger people, that everything you do is a building block to where you'll be, and that's why do your best all the time and be realistic about things, and just see what opportunities can come up. And of course, the industry is so different now, but still, it's all about talent and getting yourself out there. And I guess me growing up in New York was very helpful, and my brother being in the scene too. So I was able to get some references to artists that would have the record deal. You know what I mean? And then I had the talent, so I got the gig. So and now I don't even know like there isn't a record company anymore. You get what I mean? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sure. It's an entirely different business. And, I mean, just to recognize that. You said that you feel blessed, that's, I think that's, you put that out to the universe, and it likes being appreciated, and it gives you more things, if you're open to it. But I mean, if just start playing bass and your first bass is an EB3. I mean, how blessed is that?
Yeah, exactly.
And believe me, we weren't, I came from a very lower middle class family, so it wasn't like I could buy whatever I wanted. It was used, and maybe back then it was $300. But that's a lot to too. You know what I mean? Sure. Nowadays.
Oh yeah, but I mean back then, thankfully, it was just an old bass back then.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't invent the word vintage yet.
Sadly, I sold it, but years later, back in the '90s, I found one like the same year. It was like a '67 EB3.
Wow!
So I was real happy to have one, and that one I still own, and it was on a Kiss record, so I'm happy about that. But I am, it's foolish not to feel that way about how fortunate I've been. Now, I work very hard at it too, and nothing was like kind of just handed to me. And I think a lot of people out there are always expecting, you can't force someone to knock on the door to say, hey, do this. I want you to do this. But those golden opportunities when they're there, if they occur for somebody, it's just, do you have the talent? Do you have the right personality? Do you have the maturity to answer the call? You get what I mean?
Right.
So I've been very careful about that, but I worked very hard at it, and I sacrificed certain things too, just to be able to travel and tour and create a career out of it. And there are players that just something winds up in their lap and they make a lot of money and a lot of fame from that one thing, and you notice they can't do anything else than just that. I have to admit I have a certain versatility about it. So I could walk into KISS and replace Ace, but not be Ace, and make my own decade, actually 12 years of KISS music, you know. And I could also sit here and on the negative side, if I wanted to just complain about, well, I should be in the band, you know. A lot of fans will say to me, man, you got a raw deal. But they don't understand that first of all, I wasn't offered to become the spaceman. And second of all, in a way, as much as I miss being in KISS, that's not a job that I wanted to do, not after the 12 years of me being me, you know?
Yeah.
It's easy for Tommy, who's a talented guitar player and a good friend of mine, to walk in, even though he had a career as Black and Blue and he worked for, he wrote some songs for the band even, and was helping Gene and Paul on certain projects because he was just kind of one of those guys who can do a lot of things. You know, he's smart and businesslike. So he was very helpful with certain archiving and certain things about KISS in general. But, hey, suit up. You know what I mean? You got to play tonight. When Ace didn't want to be in the band anymore, and I'm sure they thought about, well, what about Bruce? But it's like, yeah, what about me becoming Ace Frehley? It was a lot easier for Peter to be morphed into an Eric Singer when Peter refused to, like he was kind of like in a contract negotiation issue with those guys and thought he had them over a barrel. Okay, you're not going to those gigs. Eric Singer, you want to be the drummer. You know what I mean? And, and it was a little yo-yo for a little while. There was a tour where they had to use Peter because the promoters wanted more than 2 original members, and that was the Aerosmith KISS tour. So that did happen, and all of a sudden Eric was like back with Alice Cooper, always working, always ready. And then, of course, it was time for Peter to just not do it anymore, So Eric's done a great job, and as much as the 2 of them get some criticism, and I understand the fans that feel like, well, nobody should wear their makeup, I understand that. But on a business level, and what the band always represents in the iconic figures of makeup, which had nothing to do with my era, I don't think that Gene and Paul made a bad decision having those guys carry on the tradition of the Peter and the Ace rather than going down the line of different animals. You know what I mean?
Right, right. And I mean, they're iconic figures, and at some point, I guess they felt it was time to resurrect them and keep the entire persona of the project moving forward.
Well, I've also heard, I think it was either Gene or Paul had come out and said that this band or this object of KISS is larger than even those 2.
Yeah.
To where there's going to be a day when they can't play, and they're going to
be one day when it doesn't even have to be Gene or Paul. You know what I mean? And that's probably true. There could be a KISS in the year 2050. You know what I mean? And never. It's like Mickey Mouse is iconic and forever. Of course, I know he's animated, but you get what I mean.
Well, there's bands out there where there's like not even original members, like some of these singing bands with like the backup singer stuff, and there's not a
Menudo.
Hey, I was very entertained by my bass player friend Jeff Pilson's in Foreigner, and I know Mick Jones, does gigs with them, but he doesn't always more recently. So now one guy there is anything to do with the Foreigner from the radio that you heard back from the hits and everything.
That's
Yet,
wild.
They kick ass on stage. You know what I mean? They do great.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
So, but again, me, I brought up KISS really more because of the point that I'm so fortunate that I carried on and I've continued to work. You know what I mean? And I didn't just sit around going, crawl myself into a cubby hole and just go like, oh, poor me. I have talent. I want to play guitar. I didn't lose the gig with KISS because I wasn't good enough. They had this interesting historical moment. Time to go back in the makeup because those guys, who knows how long they're going to be standing.
Sure.
MTV pushed it along, of course, because of the reunion tour. I mean, the reunion of the MTV really was the catalyst to make it happen, And, I'm not surprised it was that huge. I'm really not. And that it continues in makeup. I kind of like, though, that my era is kind of, left untainted, though. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of fans of it. So I'm the remaining waving the flag guy of that era, because we lost Eric Carr, of course, in 91. And Mark St. John, that was a part of it. I can't really count Vinny because he was just there for Lick It Up. And then he wore the makeup, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
First. And then he didn't. But then he was gone. And even though he played a little on Creatures and all, but he, as you know, he's persona non grata in the Kiss camp, so that's the end of any discussion about him.
Right. But I mean, you've continued to work, and of course you're with Grand Funk now, but I'm sure that wasn't your first gig. You worked before that. You worked your way up and in. So where did it start for Bruce? I mean, probably high school bands, I would assume.
Yeah. Good question. And it does tie in with something I did want to tell you guys about. Well, first, yes, high school bands. And then I wound up actually, when I was 20 years old, working with some guys in the neighborhood. The drummer had a basement and had the big kit and loved like a John Bonham kind of approach on the drums. And his name's Guy. And the bass player, Mike Katz, who really lived close in the next building from me in Queens. And he was a tremendous bass player, also so into Jack Bruce and an EB3 and to play that thing so naturally. Played guitar as well, wrote songs, and sang really, really well. And we had this trio that never left Guy's basement, called, we had no name, but now I refer to it as KKB, which is the last name initials of the three members. Mm-hmm. And we rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed. Yeah, there was blacklight posters on the wall and probably a lot of pot smoke after rehearsal. Because the material was very progressive in many ways, very complicated. Mike wrote very specific parts. I only co-wrote one of those songs, and it was an honor to work on them because they're so different. And I'm telling you, it'll blow your mind. I did release it in 2008 as a limited CD of 1,000 copies. I called it KKB and explained it only because back then I found the original reel-to-reel of my copy. You know what I mean? Because it never went anywhere. We went into a studio one day and really hunkered down and got tight live performances, very little overdub. And in fact, I'm in touch with the guy who recorded us now. He came out of nowhere after 40 years.
Wow.
And I called the album 1974 because that's when we recorded it. And it sold very quickly, the 1,000, limited edition, only on my website. This is pre me thinking of an iTunes or anything like that. You know what I mean? Wow. Never distributed it or anything. So Mike and I have always been in touch since then, and Guy as well, who lives in France, actually. And Mike found the original tapes finally a year ago. So he had them digitized. In other words, the individual tracks of those songs. So
right, the master,
now we can readdress the mixes, even though the mixes were great. Now we could actually add things or not. You know what I mean? And then I played Mike some new stuff that I thought was a little bit like that vibe. So we actually came up with a new song where I sent him home that time he was out here. He still lives in New York. And he was visiting me here in LA, and he went home with that tape and wrote a killer song. And just last night, for example, I was adding some guitars to that new song.
That is crazy.
And then the one ballad of the 6 songs that we, recorded very intensely back then. And some of them are a little long because they sound like a cross between Cream meets Rush meets a little bit of Yes, but without all the layers of vocals and everything. But just the fact that it's very intimate but very musical, a little complex,
As a three-piece?
I just played an SG through like a little bit of I don't know, I think it was just a high-powered Fender with a little distortion with my wah-wah. You could definitely hear my playing there, but it was, this is me and my Ross, really is. So
it sounds a little Steve Howe influence, a crank twin,
I did have Steve Howe influences, and I even, the Tears of Falling solo, I give him credit. The fancy riff that people are always not really sure how to play that I ripped off from a Yes album, okay? So I think it's kind of funny, a Yes thing on a Kiss album,
Right.
Yeah, that is kind of different.
Yeah, it was, if I was even more technical, I could tell you sextuplets or whatever, but, it's a wide spanned riff, and it's definitely a yes riff. So anyway, it's real exciting that I, actually not only did I play guitar last night, but there was a quartet that actually recorded strings for the one ballad out of those 6 songs, which made me practically want to cry to hear a song that old that I always knew was beautiful but very naked, just a guitar and a voice, double-tracked voice by Mike. And now all of a sudden there was a string section that a producer friend of mine, Jeremy, orchestrated, and it was just amazing. So that band, I'm like reliving the past. I have been archiving through the years everything with my early days. I did find stuff I did shortly after what I'll call KKB, but we never did a gig, dude. Okay, never.
The ultimate basement band.
we did. I did go on and do some gigs with Guy and another group. I recently, in fact, it was Baltimore when I met you guys. The day before, I had lunch with my old keyboard player, this guy Wayne Schuster, and he found a notebook of all our gigs in 1971 through 74. You know what I mean? Wow. It was something like that. It was really bizarre. So actually, I had played with Guy before that. By the time we weren't sure what to do, or everybody was starting to, forge whatever they were going to do with their careers. And I remember by 75, I was in a cover band that wound up touring with George McRae. He had this hit, Rock Your Baby. Disco was really big, And there I am traveling the world, backing him up. But the first half hour is the band kind of jamming on a song from Blow by Blow, funky riffs like what Bowie was known for on Station to Station. You get what I mean?
Oh yeah, sure.
So here I was with my Strat and or SG. I think by then it was the SG actually, the same SG from KKB, an SG Special actually from '65, and from there I played with also his wife Gwen McRae, who had a hit just real briefly. Then I went on to Andrea True. She was the porn star that had to hit more, more, more.
Oh, that's great.
And we went to Italy, and I'm still friends with some of the guys in the bands that I toured with during those times. Now, I was the rock guy playing disco was top 40 then.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that even though the band that I came from would cover Steely Dan to Stevie Wonder to Doobie Brothers, okay, whatever was top 40 then, to Hall & Oates, et cetera, et cetera. Although my heart was still about Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and stuff like that. But shortly after that, I remember my brother having the call to audition for Meatloaf, and Bob and I went down together. And they actually weren't that impressed with me. They loved Bob because Bob was very cocky and confident, and I don't think I hit them very, very strong. But my brother was really kind by saying, well, you can't get me without my brother. He knew I would do the dirty work. In other words, figure out the Todd Rundgren riffs from Bat Out of Hell, which I did. So at the time he bullied me in, the manager was like, great job. You know what I mean? Because he could hear that I picked off all the Todd Rundgren stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And my brother could be, it was Killer and Pretty Boy. In fact, if you buy a Bat Out of Hell CD for the past, 5 or maybe even more years, it does have 2 live tracks, and that's my brother and I playing on the intro song they call Bolero and Bat Out of Hell.
Oh, nice.
So I'm on the left, he's on the right, I'm pretty sure. So, that one thing led to another. Next thing I know, I'm with Michael Bolton, who was from Connecticut, so that was in that tri-state area.
Now, was this during the when he was like a metal guy?
Yeah, he was, we had a band called Blackjack.
Yeah.
He did a solo record, too, where he kind of looked, rock, like David Coverdale-ish.
Yeah.
Hair that I played on as well. But and then of course he went away for a few years, regrouped, came back out right when MTV was big in '83, and he did take me on the road, even though and live we did some Blackjack stuff, which connects me really to, because we were opening up for Seeger for about 3 weeks, and when Bob Seeger tours, his favorite drummer in the world is Don Brewer, and Don was on tour then with him, which is how I kind of got put on that. The short list.
The short list, yeah. I was just going to say.
Yeah, wow. Guitar players. So and that's why I was referring earlier to, you never know what's going to lead to the next thing. So that's why you got to do your best. You know what I mean? So
yeah. And you also, and I've said this a million times, you also have to say yes more than you say no.
Yes.
You got to say yes to the project that's not your perfect project, because if you don't, you may never wind up in the perfect project.
Pete Thorne. Remember Pete Thorne said he was just nice and said, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. And everybody went, okay.
You don't know where that yes is going to lead to next, man.
Exactly.
You don't.
So keep, and then do your best. Because there it is. I don't think you guys knew I played with disco artists. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Ironically, like just to give you a little funny connection, the bass player that was playing with us, George Murray, and I remember we went into a studio in Germany because we toured Germany for like 2 months. George McRae's album was huge there. So we even played at a big Grammy Award type thing where they call it the Bronze Lion or something, and he got an award. But I remember us going to the studio and we jammed, and I know this because of these archived tapes that I've been transferring to digital now, and I still had the tape on a reel-to-reel. So these guys took us into the studio, and we just came up with stuff on the spot, and they recorded us. We didn't really know what we were doing, but it was exciting to go into a nice studio in 1975, And I remember one of the grooves was really cool that George came up with, and then he's not a writer on it, but that Bowie album, when he started to play bass for Bowie, within a year. And Stay, one of my favorite Bowie albums from Station to Station, has a kind of similar bass line to the jam that he taught us to do. You get what I mean?
Yeah,
so, that's cool, man.
How do you go from, we're backing up some disco artists and then he gets a gig with David Bowie? You see what I mean? So you don't know where it's going to go. Or me being the opening act with Seeger and Brewers there, and then years later, I'm suddenly going to be in Grand Funk Railroad. It's been 14 years, And then how about, all right, I work with Michael, and Michael then changes into more the artist your mom's going to love, very successfully, of course.
Yeah.
Wins Grammy, the whole thing, sells a gazillion records, even though, for a while his name was a bit of a joke in many ways, but he's not. He's going to go forever. Look at these Honda commercials I remember last year. I don't know if they're doing any this year. And Saturday Night Live, he does these funny things. Mm-hmm. We got together not that long ago for dinner. It was great catching up with him, but
it's cool that he can make fun of himself.
Oh yeah. No, he's always had a great sense of humor. Even though I know when he first made it, he was a bit intense because he sang intense, and people thought he was always intense.
Yeah.
But the guy's really, really a very funny guy. Big fan of Rodney Dangerfield, and
that's cool.
Terrific. Not only is a singer, he's just a very funny guy. But during my Kiss years, it was him saying to me, "I want to write a power ballad." That was big back then, right? Mm-hmm. With Kiss, and sure enough, introduce him to Paul. Him and Paul write Forever. One of the classic tunes that Kiss has, will be known for.
Yeah. Big money on that one.
Very proud of that. And so that's, again, gets back to that you never know, and the connections and how everything is super intertwined, regardless if you know it or not. So I don't know. I mean, I guess straight out of let me think. I walked into Kiss, ironically, by let me see. I toured with Michael. I did a little run with 2 years with the Good Rats, a very popular Long Island band.
I love the Good Rats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pepe just recently passed, didn't he?
Yeah, that was like a year ago or so. Yeah. And we actually, I did speak with him, and I sent him a CD, and I found one of the albums that I did with him on iTunes, and I was all excited about that.
Which one did you do?
It was called Great American Music was the name of the album.
Oh, nice.
It was a little later on. You're probably more familiar with the first 3 or 4 albums, but Pepe was prolific. He kept writing, and it was a killer band. There's a cool YouTube of a radio show that was filmed that we were at. That was really great. Like one of those in the park thing where everybody was there, from Joan Jett to different guitar players. I'm trying to think of this guy's name, but you get what I'm saying. It was a local gig for me. It was fun. We were even on a bill with Ozzy Osbourne, with Randy Rhoads, and Motorhead.
Whoa,
that was really odd. I know, but believe it or not, we were in the middle. Okay, because Motorhead wasn't really known yet in the States. But that was my little connection to Randy Rhoads there. So anyway, you never know where you're going to go, but by the time the Good Rats were done, Michael took me back on the road, and then I was home. Let me see. That really leads me up to like 84. And Paul asked me to do a session like he used to ask my brother a lot. And Oddly enough, he said, "Don't cut your hair," which was shoulder length, and I'm not sure what he meant by that. But I think he knew that Mark St. John, the new guitar player, was maybe, if he's not well by the time, he was planning to tour, he thought I'd be a good choice, and that's exactly what happened.
He had a hand issue, right? He had something happen to his hand.
Yeah, he had this weird arthritic condition where your hand can blow up, and it's called Reiter's syndrome, and he did get better in time, but it took him a while, So I covered the first, the 6 weeks in Europe, and then of course they gave him a shot on the road, but I had the home team advantage. I mean, there was no doubt. I really fit in with those guys. The material was right for me, and the rest is 12 years with the band.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there was a thing where Gene and I think Gene was being interviewed, and he said that, now Ace Frehley, of course, he's an iconic guy. He had those, classic riffs and all, but they said working with Bruce, there was nothing musical that he couldn't fit. He couldn't figure out. He knew all the stuff, where Ace was just this guy, he was just a rock and roll dude. Bruce he knew how the song was structured and everything inside of it, and that was a big tip of the hat from Gene.
Yeah, for sure. And but it sounds like he had a more varied past musically, which just makes you a better all around player. You can contribute better in different ways.
Yeah,
if what you've been exposed to is across the board. You know?
Absolutely.
I mean, and even people put down the disco thing, but even that, there's a talent into the funk, playing it the right way.
And if you think about it, in that time there was no electronic anything really. You had Moog.
No, you couldn't fix everything in Pro Tools. Right?
No,
right.
And you had a Moog synthesizer at best, but the thing was as big as a house. So, it was a lot of horns. It was definitely, a heavy bass player, and there was always one guitar player in there making something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and some of that stuff, I listening back to I actually we played some big disco club on Long Island called the Habitat, because it says it on my tape, and I do remember it. And I have a recording of it, and it might even be my brother and I, but I'm not really sure. I have to listen more carefully, because for a while even Bob toured with me with George McRae, and the fun part was the half hour previous to him coming out. Mm-hmm. Believe me, he used to do 20 minutes. It was the shortest show in the world, longer than him coming out and singing his hits and bye-bye, and that was it, But doing the guitar stuff was great. Look, having me play a lot of different stuff, I know Paul was very kind of like when they actually made the decision that, all right, Mark's not going to be in the band. You are the guitarist, okay? I remember him giving me the pep talk, like, I want you to be competitive with all the new guys, because Eddie Van Halen was so hot then, So in other words, he wanted me to be able to play the vintage Kiss style, but also that kind of modern, 80s thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah,
as well. And that was that's not something Ace could have done. Although I don't in any way want to take away from the kind of like very, interesting talent of how Ace particularly played those first albums, and especially the live records,
Yeah.
That is really holy ground for Kiss material. And Ace was really, I know lots of times, even though recently Gene and Paul say a lot of, negative things about Ace, the press loves all that anyway,
Sure.
but I know one thing that they know is like, and they have mentioned many times recently, is that nobody can touch him for that stuff in those early years. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he's right. I mean, I've heard enough of that stuff to know, like, wow, I wouldn't have approached it that way, and listen how that works with this band. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
and you got to tip your hat to it, and it made the sound of the band. It was one of the members that made the sound of the band. Just the way he interpreted the parts and everything. It's his own style, and that's as original as the rest of the band.
Now, we've had conversations where we've talked about guys guys that know a lot, when they go out to do something, don't always show everything. Just because you can play like Yngwie Malmsteen,
yes.
If you're in Kiss, you can't play like Yngwie Malmsteen.
You play, you play gig appropriate.
Exactly. And Bruce was that guy. Because I had heard also, back in the day, Gene said that Mark came in, he was doing like 1 billion notes.
Yes.
He was like,
he
boom.
came from the wrong background. I remember seeing a picture of him in Kerrang, the big British, rock magazine, when he got the gig. And I remember it was so weird because it really was like this instinctual psychic moment. He had like the centerfold of it, and I just looked at it and I was like, this is wrong. This isn't right. I read his influences and I looked at him and I just said, he doesn't fit, this isn't right. And I was not saying it because going like, I should be the guitarist. Right. I just said, I don't get it.
You just did it as a fan.
Yeah. My vibe was like wrong. Well, they overreacted with Vinny and they got a short list from, Grover Jackson, actually, of some hotshot guitar players. And that's what Mark was, but that's not what Kiss is about.
Right, right. No, it's much more roots. It's much more basic. Yeah. It's rock and roll. It's not hotshot,
Yeah, his influences were some really great guitar players that have nothing to do with what Kiss is about, from, like Alan Holdsworth and John McLaughlin. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just totally left field.
Yeah, it's another camp.
It is, and it's a great camp. I love it. I wish I could be that good of a player.
Sure.
But even if I was, and the gig didn't call for it, I just, you don't put it out there if it's not appropriate.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So there we were. They sent him home. I just was looking for my Kiss contract, and I found it yesterday. So I officially joined in December 7th, 2014.
Wow.
It's coming up rather quickly.
Day after my son's birthday.
Which is, he's a Sagittarius like me. And that makes it exactly 30 years.
Wow.
My first gig was September 30th of 1984. So think about that. It's kind of crazy, I know.
Yeah, so, 30 years. I have reference points every once in a while, of things and when they happen. It's like, how did that many years just go by?
Here I am overdubbing on 40-year, material that's 40 years old.
Right.
Yeah. And then the bass player Mike that I told you about earlier, he's looking through all his tapes. He finds this rehearsal jam that we obviously worked on this piece because I think he referenced it and called it like Twilight Zone, because I'm just starting out doing a very dissonant couple of notes, but then he starts building in, the drums build, and then all of a sudden we go into this funky riff with him doing a melody in, by the way, 5/4, okay, and then an ending riff that's very complicated. That I'm playing it together with him, sometimes in harmony, and the drums follow it. And I swear to you, if I played it for you, you'd go like, so that's not the new Queens of the Stone Ages track?
So my question, I guess.
Okay.
Those Kiss gigs back then, even today, that's a huge crowd. Probably much bigger than you ever saw with those other groups. Am I correct with that?
No, you're not correct. Only because Meatloaf, we wound up doing arenas, and even played for... we had some gig with
Meatloaf and Michael Bolton.
There were gigs that we had like over 60,000 people. There was a gig with ELO, I remember, with Meatloaf, and we sold out all the arenas. That and I'm glad you made that mistake so I could lay it out there. Boy, did that help with me getting on stage with Kiss. Do you see what I'm saying? Even though I was a little more in the background and everything, and here I'm a real featured. I'm the lead guitar player of Kiss, as opposed to Meatloaf had 9 guys on stage.
Yeah.
It really did help with what it would be like to perform in arenas and do that. So, but there's no doubt that I understood the, wonderful opportunity and the intensity of playing to a screaming, young people who just, it means so much to them when you point to them or throw a guitar pick or make that face, whatever.
Sure.
It was always very exciting.
Yeah. That Go ahead.
Well, those shows I've seen Kiss.
Right.
And there is nothing less than spectacular. Just the visual. You like remove the music and you're still like, oh my God, this is just amazing. Because there's things rising and falling and there's just flames and stuff shooting out of the ceiling. And, Gene gets suspended on a wire and, it's crazy stuff. I mean, and then you got this basic, really good... Like you can almost tell, like when they write a song, there's a lot of thought and effort to make that song enjoyable. You know, where some bands, they just write to write because that's what they do, and they have, you know, some hits, but then there's some clinkers, you know. Kiss has always been able to, like, you know, end to end on their albums, it kind of holds you, you know.
Yeah, right. I mean, and they're very conscious about structuring things as a Kiss song, you know, as what people expect from Kiss and a Kiss release or a Kiss concert, you know, and that's what keeps the train moving. You
Absolutely,
know? It's I don't want to say it's the same thing, but I mean it's like AC/DC. You know? They'll tell you they wrote 13 exactly the same albums. You know,
yeah.
But it's.
I feel like Kiss's material is so varied too. You know, there's songs that are kind of heavy metal, and then there's ballads, and then there's poppy. You know what I mean?
There was almost a disco album.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Fortunately, that was before me. But I was Made for Loving You was always fun to play, even though it's not my favorite Kiss track. But I get why they did that. You know?
Yeah, they were up against it.
I mean, at that time. You know, I sometimes am a counselor at the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, which is, you know, really a wonderful thing to get involved with. And I have one coming up in February. Sammy Hagar is a special guest, among others. But there've been a couple of Kiss camps because there've been a few where Gene was the guest or Paul was a guest, and I was, you know, it fit my schedule with Grand Funk and everything to do it. And ironically, a lot of the people that would sign up for a camp where Paul or Gene is a headliner are Kiss fans, okay? But sometimes, you know, because there's another guy that's coming in that's a really strong, you know, name is coming in also to that camp. So someone might be a fan of more that person, okay? But they'll probably have to learn a Kiss song. And it's ironic when they're not really a Kiss fan. You take apart their songs, no matter, you know, I know you mentioned clinkers and every band has them, but the majority of the material is actually very well thought out, which is another point that one of you made.
Yeah.
It really is. They always did. I really have a lot of respect for Gene and Paul as songwriters and having that point of view, how they're able to kind of like, you know, be rock and roll, but do their best. No, you know, and why else would they captivate so many people? It's not just what they are doing now with the makeup. My era was platinum records and huge concerts for many, many years, you know. So there's something that they plug into that works.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a definite talent to staying, like you mentioned, the disco kind of stuff in that era, staying current and relevant, and yet the same.
Yeah,
you know,
that's the weirdness.
That's a unique talent, and you know, the people that have stood the test of time were able to do that. You know, and there's quite a few examples out there, and Kiss is absolutely one of them. You know,
but just vocals of Ace and Peter. I mean, rather of well, look, Ace and Peter did have their own little unique voice, but Paul and Gene were the dominant too. Okay,
yeah.
And I just heard that track that Paul sang off of the McCartney, you know, tribute album. And man, he did a great job because he had the right kind of that Paul Stanley bravado and got the song. You know what I mean?
Wow.
I was very impressed with that because I just don't see them as a band or artist to do covers, you know, of other people's stuff. You get what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
But you know that, you know, Gene's got a style that's so unique, and Paul's just one of those singers that you know it's Paul Stanley as soon as you hear it. You know, it's wonderful. You know, those guys are really have a tremendous talent, and I think not enough respect for some of the people that never got past the fact that they just think it's all a gimmicky kind of thing. You know.
Yeah, I think you kind of, you know, it will fall a little bit when they see that visual and they think, oh, it's just a bunch of clowns. But it really wasn't.
I mean, you know, if the only reason you're into it is for the costumes and the makeup, you know, then maybe it's no longer relevant to you. But you know, people that go a little bit further and actually enjoy the music for the music and have a coherent thought or two about how the music is put together, they're more appreciative, and those are the long-term fans, I think.
And Kiss fans are rabid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but like look at the fact that, and it always impresses me so much that I'll give you 3 names of very, very talented guitar players who love Kiss. You got John Five. Okay, he's crazy about Kiss, and what a monster guitar player. And then you have, let's say, Tom Morello, completely different kind of player, another monster guitar player, and he inducted the band at the Hall of Fame thing.
Yep.
then let's say a guy like Dimebag, who had Ace tattooed on his arm. Okay.
Yeah.
So you see these people played their own style, and in many ways styles that are much more intricate than anything that Kiss ever put out.
Right.
But who is their influence?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
right. That's a pretty heavy influence.
Sure.
It is.
Scott Ian of Anthrax.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He talks about how Gene and
yeah.
Gene was his guy, and he's a guitar player.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I want to morph this into, I have some gear questions and things like that, but I just want to touch base on a couple of people that you may or want to expound on a little bit that you've played with. It looks like you played with Billy Squier and Alice Cooper.
Well, Alice, I never really performed with Alice. It was my brother that toured with him for one tour in Australia. Alice, I've been involved with like his charity concert thing that he does in Phoenix every year. Nice. But and of course, I've played with a lot of the guys that work with Alice. But yeah, Billy Squier, I did the Tale of the Tape album in like probably 1980 or something like that, or might have been somewhere around there, maybe a little later, 82 or 3. Great record, by the way. And
nice.
Billy, obviously, he took off on the next record, but it was kind of funny too because he thought I could go on the road with him, but I was still working with Michael on Blackjack. So yeah, it would have been closer to 1980. And I said, no, we're supposed to tour. And then of course we never toured. And I'm watching Billy become the biggest, pop rock star in the world.
Yeah.
But to be honest, if I was busy with Billy, I might not have been able to join Kiss. You see what I mean?
Yeah. That's those opportunities, man.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything happens for a reason. So, let's go back a little bit gear wise, and we know the first bass was an EB3. Guitars and amps. What were you into? Well, you said you had the Twin, right?
Yeah, I had some sort of Fender, I think, that was slightly modded, and I can't really remember. I mean, I did buy a Marshall when I was young, but I don't know if I actually recorded on that Marshall for KKB. I can't remember, but I know it was a 65 SG. I'm a big fan of a Gibson SG.
Nice,
which is why all the overdubs for the song for that new track were all either an SG or a my very old Les Paul, which was part of the family for a long time, a 53 converted guitar.
Wow.
I did play a Strat with Meatloaf. I had a 63 Strat that was wonderful, rosewood neck, and it wore out. And I remember giving the neck to Bernie Rico because he was going to introduce bolt-on guitars, and I never saw the neck again, sadly.
63 is my favorite year Strat.
Bernie Rico passed away.
Believe me, he lost it many years before that.
Wow.
That company went through so many changes after a while, But,
sure, yeah.
But I was mostly, a Gibson or Fender guy or a BC Rich guy in my early years. With the Blackjack, I used a beautiful Eagle Supreme. And it's funny to watch, the BC Riches online to see people who, offer up those guitars. I do have a few. I posed with one on the cover of Carnival of Souls too. But and the amps were usually Marshalls. There was a while when I used Boogies with Meatloaf because they could distort well on a lower volume, where a Marshall couldn't back then. Yeah. And I guess from that point, by the time I got into Kiss, I was using whatever Marshalls they had. Most of them were modified. Obviously, at a certain time, people at Marshall knew that it's time for us to put a master volume and stuff like that on it. Mm-hmm. And then it came out with the 900 series that I'm still a big fan of, So, I've always been pretty loyal with Marshall, and I can always get my tone out of a 900 or 2000. I not so much the plexiglass, it's kind of that's good for certain things, but to get a little more crunch, I would need at least a 900 or 2000 series. Sure.
The 900 seems to be a love-hate thing with a lot of people, but the people that love them are really adamant about them.
I get a great sound out of them. Yeah. They're not they're too bright, so I bring the treble and the I bring the treble and presence way down in the middle and the bass up, but I get a great tone from them. So and
it's so funny. You see guys like Brian Howell's guitar player. That night we went and saw him. He had a 900. And we were like, how is he getting that out of that amp?
Right.
And Bruce, you were playing 900s that night, right?
Right, yeah.
And I was like, this is amazing guitar tone coming out of these. And I played through a 900 one time, and I was like, I can't this thing.
I know.
And I think that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah,
you know? And
I think it's a style of the player, maybe.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you got to know what you want to do with it and how you're going to use it. And I've learned that. I could make a 2000 work, but that's still my go-to head. And the one I usually use for sessions is like one of those SLX Mark II or something, which is also like an early 900 series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That one's kind of unusual. But no, a regular dual reverb I can do really well with. I have a TSL that I really like too, but I don't take it out that much. I'm able to make those work, and they're not that popular either, you know.
Right.
I mean, I played through a few 800s recently that I realized, wow, these are great if you get a good one, you know. And I bought a Silver Jubilee head that I haven't had a chance to really take out and do things with it, but I know those are great heads from Marshall, there's no doubt. So mostly a Marshall guy. You know, I do have some boutique amps like a Top Hat and a car amp and all. And I recorded to do the KKB thing. I did not use a Marshall. I had to do I brought a Fender Supersonic 22, which is a head I recommend because it's very versatile. You know, just a big sound and it's only got 112, but it sounds great. It sounds really good.
Yeah, the Supersonics are pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, guitar-wise, as you know, at a certain point, I mean, when I started with Kiss, I did use a Charvel and a BC Rich, and then ESP came along. I had a couple of Jacksons in the very beginning, but it was mostly Charvel bolt-ons, and then it evolved to a lot of guitars. ESP was making me whatever I wanted. I was still a Gibson fan, so I would find whatever worked that way. BC Rich I had, you know. It was fun. I loved changing guitars every 2 songs. I did that with Grand Funk when you saw me, you know.
Sure.
And I'll play a Fender, a PRS, of course an ESP, a Gibson. I'm just a guitar nut, you know. My collection's kind of crazy, and yeah, you know.
That's cool, man.
It's just endless.
I think it's fun too. It's fun to be able to have a gig where you can switch off guitars and you know, try to pick one that you think fits the song a little bit better. But not only that, I mean, I think it makes you play differently when you pick up a different guitar, you know, and if it comes to writing, they inspire you differently. You know, there are different songs and different guitars. You know,
they're all tools, and as you know, a good mechanic is going to know which tool to use for what.
Right.
Otherwise, you can't fix your car or your plumbing or whatever. And that's the truth. You know that I always feel like I have a good instinct. I mean, with all the gear I have, all right, well, if I'm going to be booked in the studio, and you know, studio time. I mean, even if you're going to do it at someone's house, it doesn't matter. You don't want to bring the wrong gear, you know, so you got to think about it. And I seem to always have a good instinct as to what would work. So understanding your equipment goes a long way.
Yeah. Now, do you still, whenever you do recording, and maybe this is project dependent too, but are you still a guitar and amp guy, or are you, you know, do you do modeling, or, you know,
I'm not a fan of the modeling, although of course I'll use my GarageBand to get a demo down. You know what I mean?
God bless you.
And I do think that it's amazing what you can put digitally on a computer, and how you can just recreate so much of the variances, because as you know, it's endless.
Right.
You know, between reverb and delay and a room sound and a mic and the, you know, and it's just what kind of speaker, where's the cabinet, where you want the other mic, you know what I mean?
Right. It's infinite. It's infinite. Yeah.
Yes. So, and is there a right way? Well, what sounds good is the right way, but how do you get there? And everyone's got their own bag of tricks and all. But to me, yeah, I want to hear a moving speaker and a couple of really good mics.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to go to tape. There's still some guys out there that only want to record on tape, which is a little crazy. But no, I mean, I'm very much don't want to release something that software is the kind of sound. You know, not a fan of that.
Well, God bless you.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good to hear. You
Yeah,
know? And not that we haven't heard it before.
No,
but, you know,
we've talked to guys who've gone, you know, either way.
But,
we've had a couple
for sure.
But when it comes to like stage and stuff, most of them prefer to have that air moving, and even in the studio. I mean, you know, there's too many variables there that kind of have its own organic nature that if it's just picture perfect, well, then it just doesn't happen.
Again, I think it's another one of those things that just makes you play just a little bit better or a little bit different,
Sure.
and it could be a little more inspiring. And
well, I feel like whatever's good for my heroes is good for me,
That's a perfect way to look at it, and you got to keep that going because you're other people's heroes, and you want to keep that the whole thing the way it was for your heroes. You want to perpetuate that to your heroes, and
So I'm like
keep the dream
pedals
alive.
on the floor, not through the loop. You know what I mean? And,
Sure.
I'll use a wireless if the stage is big and I got to get around, but I just want to hit the front of the amp and as much as you saw me there with a stack, I think we're only using one cabinet. I rarely have to use a stack because the sound man's going to take care of business and make it in balance. You don't want to drown out all the voices and everything.
Plus, you got to keep your hearing.
Well, I wear earplugs. That's another tip for everybody out there. If you want to keep your hearing, amps and drummers will hurt you.
Yes.
Yeah, cymbals for sure. Earplugs or you guys are using in-ears?
We tried the in-ears one day, and that was the end of that. So,
awesome.
I'm an earplug guy.
Good.
Yeah.
I know what things sound like. I've heard plenty of musicians go like, "Oh, I hate them. It just makes it sound so terrible." No, to me, it's like I get what's going on because again, the amplified thing is. I get the power behind it, but it's more because you're playing outdoors, you're playing on a big stage. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I wore them all the time with that metal band I was in, and it was perfect because it cut all those highs out, and I could really hear what I was playing over the rest of the band.
Yep.
And that's the weirdest thing. Everybody goes, "Oh, it's too muffled," and I'm like, "No, it's just the right amount of highs taken out of it."
Well,
so you aren't being distorted in your ear.
Right, and that changes everything, and it's painful and it's long-term hurtful.
Sure,
but nowadays people have the luxury, if you have the luxury of actually having there are better earplugs out there now that are custom fitted and the right amount of dB and the right frequency range of attenuation. So you can go a lot further with that, which makes it more real.
Yeah, yeah. You can lower the volume that way.
That's exactly what it is. You're just it's one big volume control.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything comes down in a uniform way.
Like a Marshall, it doesn't really want to be on 2. You know what I mean? It wants to be on like 12 o'clock. You know
right.
What I mean? It's kind of just sounds better or something. So
it's like trying.
I got to wrap it up pretty soon, guys. So what else did you want to get out of me for this interview and everything?
Not a problem.
I was with you guys for 4 hours, but I don't have the energy.
We appreciate everything.
No, it's all good. I just wanted to thank you for taking the time. I know your schedule is busy. Everybody's busy nowadays, but thank you for taking the time. And is there anything that you want to plug? You were going through all those 40-year-old tapes and everything. Is that something we can look forward to?
That's going to come out early in 2015. The goal was really to get it out this year, but because it would be the 40th anniversary. But I'll probably have some sort of quick, kind of like a blurb or a little video of a taste of the album with a little bit of the new song by around the Christmas time, just saying, hey, it's coming in 2015. There's no reason to rush it when I want to make it great because, we're not going to suddenly start up a new record unless the world demanded it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But I'm very excited about it. And everybody, all my friends love it. In fact, the new song, people go like, you mean that didn't come from 1974? It's so cool. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So I know I'm in the right direction with that.
That is awesome.
BK3, my last solo record from, that I put out in 2010, I'm going to release it in vinyl sometime in February of next year. And it's a terrific record. I got, Gene on it and his son Nick, song John Karabi, my good buddy. Eric Singer's on it. Tobias Sammet, this guy from Germany who's very, very popular. Doug Feiger sang on a song, the guy from the Knack that passed away around then. It's a terrific record. Lukather plays dueling guitar on me on one of the songs. So It's another way to get that out there, and I'm starting to write for the next solo record.
Cool.
And everybody can see what I'm up to on Facebook and Kulick.net is my website.
We'll have it up on our page.
For a long time, and and I'll certainly put a link to your interview when it's ready. My Twitter's my name. I'm out there. It's not hard to reach me and follow what I'm up to. So and that's one good thing about the whole social media thing.
Yeah, man,
that's great, man.
The bad thing about the internet is people feeling like, I'll just listen to the album on YouTube.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
There's as much bad as there is good, but
right.
we're thankful for the good, and it enables us to do stuff like this, and talk to some great people. So
this is too awesome.
And I'll be at NAMM. I know you guys are gear oriented, so I'll be there. To hang around at the ESP booth, and
cool.
This past year I did put out a very limited number of these BK models through a small company in San Francisco. That's a copy of my Junior, a beat up Junior. That's called Rock and Roll Relics. Is the name of the company. But there's some stuff on my website and Facebook about that as well. But I'll be there for Marshall, ESP, and SIT strings and the usual. And I'm always seeking out gear and it's endless. So it's fun.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's all fun. That's why we all do it. So
I just need a bigger house.
That's right. Well, they make storage lockers, my friend.
I saw Joe Bonamassa's.
Well, there you go.
Him and his gear buddy, who happens to be a very good photographer. One time I had to meet him because he did my wedding. And I was like, all right, which one? Oh, this is one of 3. And it was I couldn't believe how much stuff was in there. You know what I mean? But Joe is, not only a super talented guy, he's the serious collector.
He is.
God bless him.
Yeah,
I
he
love
is.
Him. He knows. He knows.
He's been picking up stuff in every town for years now.
Absolutely.
It's
all right,
crazy.
let me run, guys.
All right, Bruce, again, thank you very much, and much continued success.
Thanks a lot. Okay. I appreciate it. Right, bye-bye.
Well, there you have the story.
I tell you what, man, what a cool guy. Because I'd said to you, some time ago that here I am on stage. I'm helping you. I'm doing your guitar thing, and there's Bruce. He's standing right beside me. So I was like, I got to give him a card.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I gave him the card, and I didn't. I've given.
You never
the
know
card,
how that goes, right?
I've given the card to a couple other musicians, and I don't expect, especially in that environment. That card goes somewhere. It's never seen again. Sure enough, he gave me a card. And he said, contact me. I've got your information. I'll check out your stuff. And I said, okay. Gone.
Right.
Next time I saw him, he's on stage playing.
Right.
So I did exactly that. I reached out. He said, totally. Absolutely. And we had a couple misses because he had to go out on the road. And I'm like,
he's not the first guest that we've had to reschedule a couple of times.
Not at all. So then when he said, absolutely, we're going to do this, I thought at one point, because there was a lag, I thought, well, it ain't going to happen. Sure enough, he got right back to me. He says, come on, man, let's get this going. What's the first week of December look like to you? And I'm like, it looks like you're going to be on the show.
Right. Right. No, so that was great. So thanks for getting the exchanging cards with the man. I was a little busy. I did speak to him for a couple of minutes after the gig. But great guy, and he's obviously a busy man.
Oh yeah, and it's like it's like he said, you got to take these opportunities. And I know that these guys probably get bombarded with some stuff,
right? So,
but I'm like, look, this is a different show. This is nothing that you've been interviewed on before. This is not radio. I promise you this.
Right.
And I think as time goes on and more of these guys accept this and understand what we're doing, I have a feeling it's probably going to be a little bit more of a thing, and with all of our fans too, telling everybody
it is, and it's absolutely getting there. But I don't want it to be something that's rigidly formatted.
No.
I know it's called Amps and Axes, and we always get around to talking about amps and axes. But there's a whole backstory to the person on the other end of this interview. And it's so great for everybody to be able to get to hear that.
And not too many people know the Bruce Kulick story.
Right.
Right. I mean, they know Ye was in Kiss and Ye's in Grand Funk, but who knew they play with Michael Bolton and all this other stuff? I mean,
Michael Bolton.
That's really cool.
Michael Bolton had a history too before he was the Michael Bolton that everybody knows.
Yeah. So it was definitely. I was really glad, and I can't thank him enough for that.
And he's an SG guy. He likes SGs.
So I'm finding mutual friends.
That's right.
My SG, I got it all tuned up. Mm-hmm. I'll just talk about it real quick because I still love this guitar to no end. So it's like really, it's so new and it's so cool.
Right.
so I really did like a super tune on it, and it took it from like, wow, that's really cool, to like, wow, that's really crazy cool. And I'm like, I can't find anything wrong with it. And usually I can find something wrong. I don't even think I have to change the pickups in this guitar.
I think it's a keeper.
It's totally a keeper. I won't let it go. And it's easy on the back and all that good stuff.
That's for sure. A Les Paul, it's not.
Yes.
Well, originally it was a Les Paul SG.
Yeah.
You know, but now it's just the SG. But no, it's a great guitar. It's a beautiful guitar.
Yeah.
Speaking of beautiful guitars, we did the Maryland Music Awards last night.
Yes.
It's going to be a week ago or so, or 2 weeks by the time this gets out. But anyway, we did those, and a good friend of ours who's been on the program, Kevin Brubaker. You know, Rob Fahey has played a Brubaker guitar for many years now.
Yes.
You know, God, that's probably close to being worn out.
And Bobby Hurd, who plays in Crack the Sky.
Plays in Crack the Sky, plays one. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, they just went, you guys, this would be cool if you guys would play Brubakers. So Jeff Walensky played a white Brubaker bass. And I wound up playing Ken Wright's Brubaker single cut.
Wow.
On the show last night. So it was, it took me a minute because the necks on the Brubakers are highly finished.
Yes.
You know, and I'm a little bit more of it. It needs to feel just a little more raw. You know, especially the fretboard for me.
Yeah.
But I played it for a few minutes backstage. You know what? This could work. You know, and we didn't do pre-show run through with it. I did the pre-show run through with one of my Les Pauls. You know. And, you know, and because Ken wasn't there and Kevin wasn't there and the guitar wasn't there. So I pick it up in the green room a little bit before we have to hit. And I'm going, I could do this. And I got to tell you, it was a really nice guitar, man. The whole thing came off really nice. And being that it was the Maryland Music Awards, you know, the 3 Brubaker guitars.
And the back line. In
front of 2 East amps. In front of... Maryland drum. Maryland drum or Baltimore drum. I cannot remember which one Keith's company is now.
I think
it was one and then it's the other. It was Baltimore and now it's Maryland, or vice versa. But Maryland drum kit.
Wow.
Maryland amps and Maryland guitars. And
you can't go wrong there.
It was a thing, man. It was a thing. It's actually going to be televised, I think,
after the Super Bowl.
After the Super Bowl, yes.
Yeah.
So
that'll probably be locally, or will it be national?
I don't think it's going to be national. But
it'll just be local. We have a lot of fans in Maryland, so.
Oh, absolutely. So maybe somehow we can find a way to link to it or something.
Oh, hell yeah! I'm sure it'll go to YouTube. We'll put it right there.
There you go.
Why not?
Yeah, that was a fun night. So you know, all Maryland on stage for the finale of the show, and
awesome.
You know. Congratulations again to my friend Rob and my friend John for winning, and everybody else that won. And it was a fun night.
My wife did one of the presenting. She was one of the presenters.
One of the presenters.
With a woman that had a painted shirt on.
Jen Seidel.
Yes.
This is the wrong show to go there, but
that is I have seen that up close. Not her. We were at a different function.
I saw it very up close last night.
And I was like...
it's amazing.
You have to kind of like say... It'd be like this. When you drive a race car and you see the turn, you can take that turn at unbelievable speeds compared to what we're used to. So there's a thing in your head that you have to turn off that says, only take this turn at this speed. If you have a painted clothes on, there's got to be a thing in your head that you turn off that says, I am not completely naked.
I'm not really naked, right.
Although you're naked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Covered in paint, covered in a tight top. What's the difference? She does a beautiful job. It's not the first time I've seen it.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be the last.
I know.
It was great. The whole show was great. That was an added benefit.
Anytime I ever see it, there's like a 2-step for me. Like, is that? Oh, yep. There we go. And then you're like, well, am I like one of those weirdos if I look at it, or should I just,
Look, don't do it if you don't expect to get looked at.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, but I'm like looking at everybody else around me to make sure that I'm not looking like the creep that's like staring at her. Because, I mean, come on. It's a little strange. It's not everyday occurrence that you see somebody with a painted shirt.
She's obviously one of the best in the country at what she does. And, she's written books on it, and there's picture books. So there.
Well, there you go.
And you know what? I'm sure you could find it on the web. Christmas is coming. Click through the Amazon link. Look for Jen Seidel and her picture books of body painting. And what a great gift to your best friend. That would be
an awesome gift.
Male or female.
There you go.
So there you go, man.
So until next time, my friend, I am Mick Marcelino. I'm not going to
the stalker.
I'm not a stalker.
Not stalker, the gawker. That's right. I look too, and that makes me Jeff Bober.
And we are always saying,
onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmpsandAxis. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage ampsandaxiscast.com. Thanks for listening.